So I love having conversations with real estate agents that I've built a relationship with and I've done a lot of business with over the years. And this conversation with Jordyn Harwell really shows her expertise in not only how she helps residential agents solve problems, but her passion for learning and helping a commercial agent solve problems. So if you're a real estate agent looking to learn how you can be better, or a client, buyer, seller looking to work with somebody who really can solve creative problems, check out this conversation with Jordyn Harwell. Welcome to the show today with Courtney and I. We have a really good friend of mine, Jordyn Harwell. We've done some pretty creative and fun things together over the last 7, 8, 9, 10 years, and I'm excited so people get to know you better.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep. So Jordyn Harwell, if I were going to describe you as a real estate agent, it would be somebody who's very creative and liking to handle difficult transactions, which we love talking about that. We'll talk about that in a little while. But if they haven't heard who you are, people haven't done business with you, I want them to know more about you. So why don't you tell you how you got into real estate, how long you've been doing it, and what you love so much about it.
Okay, so I actually got into real estate. Funny story. I was going to school for my prerequisites for law, and I wanted to be a family lawyer. And then
Family law, like nobody's like, I want to go do that.
yeah, and you've said that a few times, and I've always wanted to go do family law. My nephews kind of went through a rough childhood, and so I was like, I'm going to go be a family lawyer, a child lawyer at that. And then, so then I started doing volunteer work for CASA. And
I love CASA.
Yeah. But I found out that the child lawyer is basically like they're in what the child wants and not what is in best interest of the child. And so I'm like, oh, that's going to be really hard for me because...
Meaning like, it's like having a kid pick what they want, but
Yes.
the kid doesn't know what they need?
Yes.
Type of thing? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
And so like you're just speaking on behalf of the child. If the child is like, I want to go back to my abused family, like abusive
But you as an
family,
adult being like, that's not good for you. That's
Right.
toxic.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, whew, I don't know if I can do that. And so just going through more of, the prerequisites, I fell upon real estate title and stuff. And I'm like, oh, this is kind of interesting. Like, did you know this about residential and commercial? And did you know this? And so,
So it got its hooks in you and pulled you in, huh?
yeah. And my real estate agent at the time was like, she was a recruiter too. But at that time, I didn't really know that. And she was like, you would be an awesome real estate agent. I'm like, no, I don't think so. But then, being more into school, I'm like, okay, let's just do it. Let's try. And then I loved it. Like it was like a niche and I loved it.
Well, a lot of people ask me while they're in law school, what should they do? Or even in undergrad, like, should I go work for a law firm? Or like, how do I get experience? What it gives me credibility? And I always tell people, find out what you're passionate about.
Yeah.
Go do that. If you love real estate, be a real estate agent, be a lender, be an investor, and you'll learn how the law is going to apply to that industry by just doing it. And then when you go to law school, you have a totally different perspective. And you go to law school knowing what you want to do. But when you go to law school trying to figure it out, it's whenever you can, end up with a whole lot of debt and maybe not doing something that you really enjoy in an industry that you don't necessarily enjoy because you haven't spent the time to explore that.
Right.
So, I mean, I've told you this several times. I do think that if you went to law school and came out, you'd be light years ahead of anybody else that got into the title world, because you've seen so much of the transaction. Like, I hadn't seen anything on my first deal.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I could do the basic legal analysis and apply it, but I had to go through years of experience to start to see the common instances and situations that happen. And so I think it's great. And if you still do decide to go to law school, just let me know. Just let me know. So as you got into the real estate industry, I know that you're residential real estate agent. You do a lot of volume on residents, but you also do investing. So how did you kind of make your way through the real estate industry as you got started?
Honestly, so it's it's crazy to me that some agents have not learned every aspect, and I'm still learning. And I'm not saying like, I'm so brilliant in it, but there's just so many different parts. And like, whenever I meet somebody that's like been in it for 20 years and they're like, what? Like, what is this subject to? I'm like, what? How do you not know this?
I had a conversation one time with someone who was, I don't want to say like higher up, but someone who was wildly respected among agents. And they're like, Courtney, we live in two separate worlds in real estate. Your world and my world. I was like, because when I step into y'all's world in the real estate agent world, I'm like, And so much so that I realized it. And then I went and took the class. I didn't get licensed, but I took the class and I was like, what are these tons and like how many whatever in an acre meets and bounds and like all this stuff? And I'm like, what? Like I never.
And how irrelevant is that?
Right.
Right. And so I'm like looking through this, and then the 3-sentence paragraph on the subject 2, or 3-sentence paragraph 1 wholesaling and assignments, or and then like the ways to figure out like for a deal, like in the real estate agent class, I was like, I barely used none of these.
Yeah.
Like,
No.
I'm sitting here and I'm like, interesting. And then but it's one of those, we live in 2 separate worlds, and I'm right there with you. I mean, I cannot tell you how many times I've sat across from an agent who's just like, Courtney, like, I feel like you're speaking a foreign language to me right now.
Do you feel like it's the agent's duty to do some digging? I mean, like, again,
I do. I mean,
yeah, we've sat in several seminars together
Yeah.
where we're learning and figuring out how the investor side works.
well, and also like I would say this too, that a lot of title companies don't do that either. And so it's
no.
like I love that like title company. Like I like being in those classes together. Like, hey, Jared, like what, Courtney? Okay.
We've all sat in plenty of rooms together. No, I've met probably 10 plus attorneys in our region who started talking to me about subject 2, and they're like talking about, oh yeah, like an assumption. And I'm like, well, let me hear your thoughts, keep going. And I'm sitting
they're like, that's illegal.
Or that's illegal. Like one of the first title companies I worked with was like, and I hate this analogy, but it's an old dog who didn't want to learn new tricks, right? And they were just like, no. And they almost botched one of my deals because like they said yes because they wanted the business, but then they were like, well, we don't really like doing things. Like they just wanted the more simple.
Yeah.
And they almost completely tanked one of my deals. And so that was enough for me. But I did not listen to the signs on the wall, which were, that they were just so rigid and not willing. And so what I can appreciate, going back to the real estate agent side, whether it's the attorney side, the real estate agent side, I can appreciate the curiosity.
Right.
Even if it's not for you. Like, I don't care to have my real estate license, but I went and took the class to understand, number one, what are agents being taught? Maybe there's something I can learn about real estate from there. And there was things I learned, right? But like the curiosity part, when people are like, oh,
that's not my world.
and I'm like, okay, but understand this, like, I think curiosity's been one of my, like, it's been like a silent hack to success.
Yeah.
Kicking me. That's like a
I'm trying to kick something.
No, I totally agree because like I see that in title too. It's like even when me and Jared, like I'll call him and say, hey, like I have this difficult thing. How can we work this out? And he's like, okay, let's like digest this and go through it. And then
That's curiosity.
yeah. And then we get John on the phone, or like we take a minute, we take like 30 minutes and then get back on the phone and we're like, okay, like we thought about this. It was so simple. It was right there. But it's just like getting through that when another title company would have been like, no, you can't do that. Yeah. Or like any other agent would have been like, what are you doing? Like that's illegal. Or I honestly think why agents need to have the curiosity is so that they can help their clients, like because so many sellers are going through things that can be solved so creatively, but the agents don't know about it, and so they're not sharing, and they don't want to share that information. And what's crazy to me is that they don't want to give the opportunity to another agent just to learn. Like I'm not trying to take your client, I just want to teach you so that you can teach your client, and then it will be saved.
I have had so many people who like it's an agent who's like, well, I heard I was supposed to call you about this subject 2 deal. And they're like, but before we get, what's your catch with this? Like, I'm like,
What do you get out of this?
What do you get out of this?
Yeah.
And I'm like, so that someone doesn't like the ability to lay my head down at night and sleep because someone didn't get screwed on a deal because I'm not stingy with my information, right?
What's the value that we offer the community? I mean, as an attorney, as a real estate investor, as an agent servicing your client, that's the value that we add. And then we all know that it's going to come back to us, the giver's gain mindset. Like we're going to give stuff to the community. And if we give the knowledge and we go and learn things that we can give for more value, the more is going to come back to us. I mean, that's the bottom line. I mean, I get that all off. Like I'll notarize things for free. I give advice on closings I'm not doing. Why am I doing that? It's because I want to add value so that next time you have an issue that's related to this, you call me because I can help you with it.
Well, and then also you're learning. Like you're learning. Every real estate deal is different. Every single one. Even if they look the same on the outside of the book, it's different. And then you're learning a new way to do things as you go on.
Yeah, my team always laughs whenever we always say, "Oh, it's just an easy cash deal." They all have a curveball at the end, where as soon as you say that, it's like somebody goes
Everything
out of town.
falls.
Yeah, it's all totally screwed up. But again, yeah. So it's really why I love this business. If you look at it from an outsider's perspective, you have a 30-day contract. There's a contract at the beginning. There's a closing at the end. And people can kind of get lost in the nuance of that. But if you really get into the creative stuff, there's so many things that can happen in the middle that you've got to try to prevent issues before they happen.
Right.
But the game is that every time an issue does pop up, it gives you another way to be better and enhance your process and to create a better system. And that's what I love about it.
Yeah.
So I can already see where we're going with this, but let's kind of dial back just a little bit. Obviously, you're passionate about real estate, and I know both on the retail side, helping clients and sellers, right? Sellers and buyers, but then also with investors and then investing yourself. Talk to me about your journey with investing, and then we're also going to talk about like other business ventures and stuff like that.
So, honestly, so I love like being able to handle the problems with investors. Like I feel like I have a lot of the knowledge to be able to share and express like, okay, this is how this would work. But I'm scared to press the gas pedal on for myself.
No,
and I feel like
I understand that.
I feel like I have to like write everything out several different times, like the same deal, but several different times to see it on different days to say like, okay, is this good? No, it's good for them. Like I would definitely buy this if I was them, but I'm just so nervous to pull the trigger on my own. And I don't know if it's because I have 4 little faces looking at me at home to like, don't screw this up or what. Like, I don't really know, but like, I'm confident enough to tell someone else to do it or tell someone else this is a good deal. Like, you should do it. You're going to make this amount of money. Like, and then look in the long run. And then this is the amount that you're going to make every month. So, but then when it comes to me, I'm just reserved. And I hate that.
I can appreciate that vulnerability. I have met a number of people over the years where it's just like, it's like that level of, I believe in real estate for the freedom it can provide, like the options. But we also have all heard the horror stories of how real estate has damaged people, right? Like, bankrupted them or whatever, right? And I can really appreciate that. I remember one time I had a deal. I literally had 2 panic attacks. It was the deal that never died. You remember that one? I swear to God that it's going to come back alive again for like the 8th time. That deal. Biggest deal of my career. And I swear it like is like Beetlejuice. It like comes out of nowhere and comes out of anyway.
Every 18 months I get a text from Courtney.
Guess what's alive? Anyway, I had 2 panic attacks on that deal. And I just remembered, I never closed on the deal, right? And I just remember being like, I can logically walk through this deal in my head, but there was something in me was like, this deal is going to bankrupt me and my family. Like, this is going to be the deal that hurts us. Yeah. And I think that's a lot of, and I mean, like, it had crazy, the life of that deal was crazy, but it was one of those things where, like, I can understand that. Now, that was, again, on a more larger deal that was, like, there's just a lot of different moving pieces to it. But, like, that's even, like, on the first deal, I have questioned so many of the deals I've done, just being like, am I making the right decision for me and my family? And so one just piece of advice that has helped me through that was just getting sounding board from people who have been further down the road and just say, hey, this is what I'm looking at. Is there anything I'm not seeing? Yeah. Is there anything because we bring the emotion of fear to it, right? Or the anxiety or the whatever. Yeah. But then when someone they're not thinking of the 4 faces, they can look at it from an outside perspective. Same way with like a real estate agent, right? Like when you're talking to your clients, you're like, hey, let's look at just the numbers, right? Just the black and white of the numbers. That was how I used some of my, whether they saw themselves as this or not, some of my early mentors was just like, I'm looking at these and because I was just like, I don't know, freaking out because it was like, am I making the right decision? I felt like I had all my chips and I was like, across the table,
in my head, I'm thinking how I can say this the right way. And that's the key, right? you as a real estate investor at this point, by doing a deal, you're not pushing all your chips in, right? By doing a deal, it is just adding to your portfolio and your business and your system. The first deal, you feel like you're pushing all your chips in, because some people actually do push all their chips in.
Oh, I did.
Yeah, and and sometimes but at a certain point in your life, you can do that as you get older and you have things that are going on. Your family gets bigger. It's harder to push all the chips in. And I think that some people who get into real estate don't ever put themselves in the position to be able to make that investment and it not bankrupt them. Yeah. That's a big part of what we're doing at Arena, is we're trying to position ourselves so that we can buy real estate, but we have buckets we have to fill before we can make that decision, because then...
Well, those are safety nets.
Exactly. Yeah. But a lot of people don't do that, so they get to that point where they feel like they got to go faster, they do it too early, and they don't have the longer plan in order to make that decision, which is what when real estate investors come to us and they're trying to learn or make the decision, being able to give the advice, like, are you and your family in a position to be able to take on this investment and it makes sense long term? Because that's how you can do more investments. If you're not ready to do that and you take this deal, or you do something that can put you in a bad position, you may never get another chance to do it, or it might take a really long time. Yeah. Or you may be burned so bad you don't ever want to do it again.
Well, and then also, I mean, if you don't jump on that deal, then that deal is not that deal down the road. It's like more.
There's a lifespan to a deal, right? Yeah. Like, you can't always
the rears go up.
Well, you can't steal in slow motion. Yeah. I always say that, right? Like, there's a lifespan to a deal. Eventually, it's going to expire, right? Like, whatever it may be. And I remember my first subject to deal. There was he's no longer with us, but the late Mr. Robert Reed, he was a broker, but he was an investor. Here we said he was an investor first, a broker second. And he had an investor-centric brokerage. Like, basically, it was where a lot of the local investors would hang their hat, whether they did, transactions or not. And but he taught me, he was one of my first influences for subject to. So I'd heard about it, and saw him at a meeting. This guy was 6'8".
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
He came, and anyway, I saw he had a We Buy Houses thing on his truck. I called him in a Popeyes, and then I told him, that's when I had the RIA, and I told him about it. So he came, and I'm hearing this guy's, all the deals this guy had done, and I'm sitting back there, and I'm like, I'm talking with him, and he was like, meet me at my satellite office. It was a McDonald's, so
that's awesome.
And buy me my senior coffee. I'm like, okay, will they let me buy it? But I remember I gave him my first subject to deal. I said, you can have this. I think it's the lead seems like it fits it. Mm-hmm. And I go, look, you can have it if I can just watch you through the process. Like, that was where my fear was too. I was like, I'm worried I'm going to mess something up. And I remember standing next to him, like looking up at him while he's in front of the seller talking to them. And that was kind of, again, how I kind of helped my fears that stopped me in the beginning. I was like, this is so different than the other ways I had done real estate as an investor up to that point. And it was one of those things where, I mean, I learned a ton from him. And just seeing him go through that process and go through the motions, and like, how did he talk to the seller about it? What processes did he go through?
Which is why the beauty of being a real estate agent that also wants to do real estate as an investor, you get to experience things from an outsider's perspective and try to guide people through it. Right. Yeah. And that's my mentality about being a title attorney. I can see somebody do a deal, I can help them work through the issues, and then I can take advantage of that process as myself. Before we transition into how you generate business and your hard deals, I do want to talk about WeMeasure, because that's a business that you created to solve a problem. Mm-hmm. So talk about what you and Katie are doing with that company and what problem you're solving for realtors.
Okay, so WeMeasure is basically just in the name. We measure houses so that the real estate agent doesn't have to. And
I appreciate how simple that name is. Yeah. Because sometimes you're like, wait, what is this?
Yeah. And so, a lot of agents have to measure their houses before they put them on the market. And not a lot of agents actually do that. They steal from...
Or know how to.
Or know how to. And they'll steal from the previous MLS numbers, and they don't know where those numbers came from, and then that person stole from the previous, and so it gets tricky. And then at the end, when you go to closing, it could be, a lot of people can bring up the appraisal, like, wait, no, this was supposed to be this, and I bought this for this amount per square foot, and so we've seen lawsuits, and so we're like, how do we fix this problem? And so we created a business called WeMeasure. And so we go in, we measure the square footage, we measure the rooms, all the numbers, so that the real estate agent can have it and put it on the MLS. And
And confidently know they put it on the MLS, right?
Yeah.
That there's the right numbers. How,
They know the source of the information, not like I'm pulling it from Zillow, I'm pulling it from the
And we
previous
even
MLS
get,
or
like,
whatever.
We're certified the same way as a appraiser would be. And so, we go
you
through
actually have a certification for this.
Yes, so we actually have our certification.
Okay. Like what type of what type of certification is it? I didn't know that existed.
Yeah.
If you didn't ask me, I would have known. It's
No,
AS
you're good. But it's certifying that you've been trained on how to properly measure.
Correct.
Yeah.
And what type of liability does an agent have by putting something in the MLS that they haven't verified?
Yeah, so they're going to call, the first person to call to court is going to be the agent. And then, they go back and forth to say, okay, did you actually measure this? And how did you measure it? And all of yeah, they have liability. The people that we've seen that go to lawsuit, they've gotten that money taken out of their pocket.
The difference between the sale and
Correct.
like the per square footage of, like you said, it was 2,000, it was really 1,805.
Right.
And so whatever the difference, that could be tens of thousands of dollars.
ANSI standards. So
Okay.
we are ANSI standard certified. And
What's your geographical reach for that business right now?
so we go all the way to New Orleans to Baton Rouge.
Gotcha. So I-12,
So
Slidell to
Yep.
Baton Rouge,
South
all the way to
Louisiana,
South Shore.
like
Okay.
Yep.
Southeast Louisiana.
Yeah.
Yep. And so, and just because not a lot of people are doing it, and I know there's a few companies in Baton Rouge, but we're just trying to reach a larger scale. And it even comes with a layout of the map of the house, and then with our logo, the agent's logo, all the things, and so that it's really nice. They can put it on the MLS.
Yeah, and stuff like that's so important. I can't tell you how many times when I've looked to buy a house and say I'm going to go buy a house, right? And I think the value is one thing because of the size, but if I find out it's otherwise, I could be, either
In the hole.
be in the hole or the seller really got gypped,
Right.
Because I'm
Correct.
getting more than
Correct.
what I paid for
Right. And so in that way, like, the seller is always usually the one that's like,
at risk. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, yeah, it's their product.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then too, but the buyer could be upset that they didn't get what they actually thought they were going to get. And so,
Which is where litigation can come into play.
correct.
That's a big deal.
If somebody, WeMeasure has a Facebook page. I know that because we've
Yep.
helped y'all with some of the video production for that company. And how do people get in touch with you guys if they want to reach out for your services?
Our Facebook page, our website is WeMeasure.co, and our social media, WeMeasure, and Facebook.
And
Instagram.
primarily, are homeowners reaching out to you, real estate agents, lenders, like who appraiser? Like I don't know who's
so
all.
surprisingly, real estate agents, of course, but a lot of homeowners have reached out just to get square footage on, they want to change the carpet, they want to change the paint.
Nice.
And then also before they list with their agent, they want to get it. And so that's been cool.
Yeah.
I thought it was really just going to come from agents, and that's what kind of we're geared to. We're not marketing ourselves as agents at all. We just have,
It's just a service. I mean, you're congruent because of it's just a service within the
and
real
we
estate
have
world.
lockbox access. So we're able to
Yeah.
go in and, be a part of that agent's team. Like
Yeah.
while the photographer's there, we're measuring. And so,
Yeah.
things like that. And
No,
just
I think
another
that's
tool
huge.
in the toolbox.